Hi lovelies, welcome back to the channel today. So in today's tutorial we'll be going about the drafting, the cutting and the sewing of a full standing 720 degrees flare. So this is what a 720 degrees flare looks like, and this is how full it should be. So it actually went around the waist of my dummy twice, because the waist I'm working with is not the exact waist of my dummy. So if this sounds like something you're interested in learning how to do, please continue watching. It is 100% beginners friendly and it's never going to be a thing of regret. So without much ado, I'll dive right into what we have for today. So right now, just give a rundown on the different degrees of flare we have. So the lowest degree of flare we have is 90 degrees. So in order for you to get a higher degree of flare, you multiply that particular degree of flare you have by 2. So right here you can see that I multiplied 90 degrees flare times 2 and I have 180 degrees. So this is how to go about the calculation of your degrees of flare depending on what you want to cut out. Okay, so 90 times 2 is 180 degrees. So if you multiply 180 degrees by 2, you get 360 degrees flare. If you multiply 360 degrees flare by 2, you are going to get 720 degrees flare. So just like that, the list continues. We also have 1440 degrees flare and the rest. So a 90 degrees flare is usually 2 pieces on fold. A 180 degrees flare is usually 4 pieces on fold. Then a 360 degrees flare is usually 8 pieces on fold. Then for a 720 degrees flare, it is usually 16 pieces on fold. So I believe you all understand my explanation right here, and I'm also writing it down on my paper so you all will understand what I mean. So but for this particular tutorial, we are working with a 720 degrees flare. So normally after folding your flare, you're going to count how many pieces you have on fold and you divide your waist circumference by how many pieces you have. So right now my waist circumference is 38 inches. So because a 720 degrees flare is 16 pieces on fold, I'm going to divide my waist circumference of 38 inches by 16. So when I do that, I have 2.375, but approximately I'll be marking 2.75. So right now we are going to have 16 pieces of folds after drafting our flare. So now this is my pattern paper, and from the center I went ahead to fold it into 2. Now from the top part I'm going to fold it down, okay, to meet the other base of my paper. So I'm going to flip this to the other side so that we all can see the folds we have so far clearly. So right now, like I said, our waist circumference is 38 inches and I'll divide it by 16 because the total number of pieces we have on fold will be 16. All right, so at that pointy top part there, that is where I'll be marking my waist. So after folding your flare, ensure that one part is properly closed. You can see that the other part is kind of open. Okay, so your 2.75, I refer to it as my 2 3/4. So just mark 2.5 and count extra 2 lines. That is your 2.75. So I went ahead to label that up at W. So that is the part where our waist circumference of 2.75 will be marked. So place your tape this way. Make sure it's not too curved. I got my 2.75 and I'll mark it at both edges of this my paper this way. So now I'll place my tape at that pointy part of my paper and mark down to measure what I have. So now I have 1.5 inches. So this 1.5 inches, I'm going to mark it around on that my waistline, making sure that it meets the first dots I made at the 2 edges of my paper. So you see how I'm marking this and I'm moving in a semicircle way. So make sure that they align. Make sure that they align. All right, so you can see what I have right here now. They align. Now the next thing is to determine the length of my flare. So the length of my flare is 10 inches. I'll come to one end of my paper and mark it, and I'll come to the other end of my paper and mark 10 inches. So at this point now, you can see that my tape did not start from the very tip of my paper. It started from that line that 2.75 line. That's exactly where you're supposed to place the tip of your tape, and now mark the length of your flare. Yours can be longer than mine, yours can be shorter than mine, depending on where you are fixing or attaching your flare to. Okay, so mine is to a blouse. All right, so after marking these dots right now, you can see how I did this. I'll go ahead now to use my pen to connect these dots together. So after connecting these dots now, I'll go ahead and cut it out. This is a 180 degrees flare because it is 4 pieces on fold. So if you're trying to fold a 720 degrees flare at once, it's not going to come out properly because it has 16 folds. So I counted this one right now. You see that it is 4 pieces. So for us to get a 16 pieces on fold, we have to cut out 4 pieces of a 180 degrees flare. Okay, so by the time you do this, at the end of the day, if you count them all together, they are going to be 16 pieces on fold. So remember that this one we have now is 4 pieces on fold. That is for a 180 degrees flare. So we'll have it cut out 4 pieces. Okay, so now you can see that I got this my Ankara print fabric, which I'm going to use for this my flare. And I also went ahead to fold it the exact same way I folded on my pattern paper. Then I traced this out on my fabric. So please note that I also added my hemming allowance while I was marking the length of my flare. Okay, so I believe everything I've done here is so clear to you all. So when you are done cutting out this way, go ahead and count out your pieces you have on fold. Okay, so right now this is a peplum stay that I'll be gumming to this my Ankara print to have this firmness. Okay, so I'll also cut out 4 pieces of it. Here is my lining. I'll also cut out 4 pieces of it. So now this is what I mean. You can see that everything I have right here is 4. Okay, my Ankara print, my peplum stay, and also my lining piece. So right now I just got one part of the flare of my Ankara, and I'm going to separate it at one end. All right, so you can see what I have right now. This is for just one piece. Now I got one of my peplum stay. This is like the hardest of all peplum stay, so I'm going to gum it now on the wrong side of my Ankara piece. So if you're working with any interfacing, be it a hairstay or a peplum, so whatever it is, do note that the shiny part is always the part that gums with your fabric. So you must not use a peplum stay right now. You can go ahead and also iron your hairstay to this. Okay, so I've gone ahead now to iron my peplum stay to the wrong side of my fabric, and this is what I have. So one thing I'll be honest with you all right here is that if you don't have the strength, the time, and the patience to actually go about this, please do not iron a peplum stay to your flare. Instead, please go with a hairstay. Okay, iron your hairstay to your fabric and to your lining piece. All right, don't bother ironing your peplum stay to your fabric. Okay, so after I've done this now, I got one end of the part I opened on my flare. So I brought 2 parts of my flare right now, and right sides facing each other. I'm joining them this way. So I believe everything I'm doing right here is very clear to you all. So when you place them right sides facing each other, go ahead and mark 1/2 inch, because you're going to join all these 4 pieces together using just 1/2 inch. So when you go ahead and mark 1/2 inch, you stitch, get the other remaining piece, get another end on this straight part. I hope you can see the part I'm joining. Also go ahead and join this way, mark 1/2 inch, and join on your sewing machine. So after I must have done this to my fabric, I'll also go ahead and repeat the same thing to my lining piece. So all this piece I have right here is 4 in total, and when you count them on fold, it's 16 pieces. All right, so I went ahead to also separate them at one side. You don't separate them at 2 sides. Okay, just one part alone, just the same way I'm doing right here. So I'll also go ahead and join them at this straight part here. Okay, from the waist down, I'll also go ahead and pin it together. So this was easier for me to pin because we don't have this our peplum stay iron to it. So you are not supposed to iron your peplum stay to your lining piece, so it's just your fabric alone on the wrong side. So I'll also go ahead and join using just 1/2 inch. So this is what I have when I was done joining all of these pieces together, and trust me, this is like accurate. If you go about this the same way I'm showing right here, it will definitely align with wherever you are fixing this your flare to. So mine is to the waist part of a blouse that I'm sewing. Okay, so if you want to fix it to the hem of your skirt or your gown, whatever it is, just measure the circumference of the part where you're facing it to, and now divide by 16. So I've joined for my lining piece as well, and also my fabric. So all in total now my 4 pieces of flare are joined together. So the right side of your lining facing the right side of your fabric, you are going to pin these and make sure they align at the base. So me now, I'm going to join using just 3/4 inch. So I think here it's called 0.75. so at the base I'm going to join it all around the base of this my flare. Okay, so I'll just show you all right here. So I went ahead to do my markings on the peplum stay because it will be more visible for me to see my lines properly. So you are going to follow the curve flare is. You're not meant to keep your flare straight or force it straight. Just make sure that you arrange your lining properly, and as you are stitching following the curve on the base or the hem of your flare just as it is. So you see that I took my time to go about this. I'm marking my 3/4 inch. I think that's 0.75 all around till I get to the other end. So when I was done joining, this is what I have. So this is what I have right now, and the next thing is to top stitch on my lining piece. So this way, these SSCs I have, I'm going to top stitch it on my lining piece this way. Okay, so place it on top of your lining piece. This is on the wrong side though, not on the right side. So top stitch on your lining piece this way all around. So when I was done top stitching, this is what I have. So by the time you go ahead and do this, iron this very well. Like when you iron this very well, that is when this your peplum stay will kind of stay relaxed. Okay, so you can see how neat this is looking. So turn it over to the right side and iron. So I believe you can see what I've done right here so far. So after this now, we still have the 2 ends of our flare open. So now we are going to turn it now to the wrong side, just the edges, those 2 ends that are still open. So you are going to flip it this way to the wrong side because you are going to join them, okay, to close up the rough edges this way. Okay, so you see that I turned them to the wrong side now, so you can see what I have here. Then you now go ahead and mark 1 inch because you are going to stitch this using just 1 inch, and by the time you are done stitching it, you go ahead and flip it to the right side and also give it a very nice pressing so that it can flatten properly. Okay, so you can see that I marked 1 inch, and that is what I'll stitch all the way down to the base of this my flare. So just do this, take note of the markings and the inches and everything I'm using right here. So do it for the both ends that are still open. So by the time you now stitch them and iron it very well, you're now going to have only the waist part open. So see, I've stitched one end and this is the other side I've stitched. So this is what I have. So the only part now that is open is the waist area. Then if you're actually making this into a blouse, you can go ahead and fix it to the upper part of your blouse, just as I've done right here. So this is a bustier blouse I'm sewing, and you can see that it's aligned perfectly on the waist area. So, and if you're actually ironing a peplum stay to your flare, please go ahead and pipe the waist area after you are done joining it to the upper part of your blouse, so that you don't have this discomfort when you put it on. So this is when I was here to fix it, but I already showed you all where I fixed it to my blouse. And this, so it must not necessarily be a blouse. You can fix your flare to anywhere, to the sleeve of a dress, to the hem of your skirt or your gown. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. I really do appreciate all my subscribers, and if you're here to subscribe, please kindly do so. This channel really teaches a lot and you will learn from this channel. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all some other time on this same channel. Have a lovely time ahead of you all. Bye.